Excellent. So, today, I just managed to get in time. Today I'm going to be discussing the Vajragota Sutta on fire. So the day sutta is going to be on fire, so it can warm everybody up if you feel a bit cold. And of course, it's just on the simile of fire. And he used the simile for an important point about, do you want to get a nice, comfortable seat? I think most people are comfortable enough. Yeah, do you want a comfortable seat, or there's someone over there? Okay. There's a microphone next to it. I must sit with that, not that far away. No, anyway. Oh, crikey, somebody else coming in late now as well. So anyhow, I'm not going to wait this time. So this is with Vajragota on fire. The reason which I chose this one for was to make it kind of easy for me. Honestly, I do like an easy life. And one of the points of Dhamma which need to be exemplified and reiterated again and again and again is to understand what is the nature, of this thing called nirvana. What are you in this for? What's going to happen to you? Imagine that nirvana was something, and I talked about and I said, do a lot of meditation and you get to this thing called nirvana. Wow, there's a lot of people in that car. Fine. Well, anyhow, welcome. I'll pause again. I don't mind pausing a lot because this is an easy sutta. Please come in, get your choice of seats and relax to the max for the last sutta class of the season. Very good.
Ajahn, there's one more by Ajahn Brahm on the 26th.
Oh really? Ajahn who?
Nibbutta.
Nibbutta, okay. What's his one? Okay, I hope it's not the same one. Thank you for that. When is this? When's the rain retreat?
It's a couple of days after that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, fair enough. So, very good. So that one of the reasons I chose this. It's a simple sutta, but it's also very, very, very profound. It uses a very easy simile to describe what Nibbana is. And it's good that people know what it is, because in my life as a monk you've seen so many people describe Nibbana in so many different ways. Most of them are complete gobbledygook. If they're not gobbledygook, if they do make sense, it's certainly wrong. And this sutta in particular, the Vajragota Sutta, is so simple yet so profound. So instead of just trying to waste time, I'd now start reading it. It's up on the board over there. Do you want to have a look at this, or are you saying, okay. Can you see okay? Good. So with Vajragota on fire. Thus have I heard. At one time the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's monastery. And that was the monastery in which the Buddha spent most of the time. He did also live in the bamboo grove next to Rajagaha, but it seems to be that Savatthi was the place more than any other place where the Buddha would live. Then the wanderer, Vajragota, went up to the Buddha. A wanderer was a person, a religious seeker, who he didn't adhere to the Buddhist views. He was still seeking instructions, still seeking wisdom, and many of the discourses are the Buddha meeting wanderers either wanderers who came into his monastery, or where he was walking, visiting other places, and wanderers would go and see him. In those days, it was very acceptable and very common. There were people who did not have a particular teacher or a particular religion, but nevertheless they would go from place to place. They would have very few possessions, and they would seek wisdom from many of the wise people sitting in monasteries or sitting alone in different places in India at that time. And Vajragota was one of them. And Vajragota went up to the Buddha and exchanged greetings with him. He didn't sort of worship. That's actually where you can sometimes find out what the relationship was between Vajragota and the Buddha. They just exchanged greetings. They didn't do any salutation or regard any one of each other as their teacher. They just exchanged greetings. While the greetings and polite conversation were over, he sat down to one side and said to the Buddha, "Master Gautama," and calling him not as the Buddha, the exalted one, as just Master Gautama, "is this your view? The world is eternal. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." It seems that's what people would talk about in those days. Is the world eternal? Is it not eternal? What is the view? As a point of discussion. "Master Gautama, is this your view? Is the world is eternal? This is the only truth. All other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? The world is not eternal. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? The world is finite. This is the only truth. The other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? The world is infinite. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? The soul and the body are the same thing. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? The soul and the body are different things. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? A fully enlightened one exists after death. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? A fully enlightened one doesn't exist after death. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." Then the gasp of air, that was not written down in this text. "Then is this your view? A fully enlightened one both exists and doesn't exist after death. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong." "That is not my view, Vajra." "Then is this your view? A fully enlightened one neither exists nor doesn't exist." "A fully enlightened one neither exists nor doesn't exist after death. This is the only..." I think it could have been, I don't know what you have on there, but fully enlightened one neither exists nor doesn't not exist. Things are not missing out there. After death. This is the only truth. Other ideas are wrong. "That is not my view, Vajra." "Oh, my Master Gautama, when asked these 10 questions, you say, 'That is not my view.' Seeing what drawback do you avoid all these views?" And that's what wanderers would normally talk about in those days, in these different views. Each of these 10 views is a thicket, a wilderness, a contortion, an evasion, a fetter of views. They're beset with suffering, vexation, and despair. They don't lead to disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, enlightenment, and cessation. Seeing the drawback, I do not hold to any of these views. Now that's worth just pausing there. See, these views, they're a wilderness. You don't really get anything from them. They're a contortion, an evasion, a fetter, beset with suffering, vexation, and despair. They don't lead to disenchantment. One of the things which people don't like giving up is the attachment to views and ideas. It gives them a sense of a place, a view, a standpoint, a place where they feel there may be some truth, but it never leads to disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, peace, insight, enlightenment, and cessation. I like the way that they have, after insight and enlightenment, cessation, the final quality there being cessation. Seeing this drawback, I do not hold to any of these views. But does Master Gautama have any views at all? What views do you have? Any views? Imagine you went to see your psychologist and say, "What's your view?" And I don't have any. What would your shrink say? Are there any psychologists here? Few. The Buddha has done away with such views, for the Buddha has seen, such is form, such is the origin of form, such is the ending of form. That's the Rupa Kanda, the first of the 5 components of existence. And such is experience. That's the Vedana. Sometimes people call it feeling, but I prefer the much more accurate and I think more evocative translation of Vedana being experience. Such is experience, such is the origin of experience, and such is the ending of experience. Such is the third component of existence now. Such is perception. Such is the origin of perception, and such is the ending of perception. And that's important to understand where views come from. It's not just a view, it's why is that view created? Because all those perceptions and the origin and the ending of perception, are perceptions trustworthy? I'll pause there for a moment. All the perceptions you have, are they real? Are they true? Are they dependable? Or are they totally conditioned? Yeah, they're all conditioned. And it's amazing, some of those perceptions which you kind of believed in, and you took as a basis for the way your life was lived. Some of them times you find they're not really valid. Now each one of you, every one of you, if any one of you fell in love, did you ever say to your wife, to your husband, "I will love you for all time"? It's pretty dumb, isn't it? Or is it? What do you reckon? Would anybody argue with me there? but sometimes that's what we say. We say that because where did those perceptions come from? Maybe our family, if your mother and dad had a happy life together. Maybe it came from the movies you saw, maybe the teachers, maybe the church you went to. What's actually true? Where do your perceptions come from? Anyway, you see what perception is. That's the third of those components of existence. Now you get to the interesting, even more interesting stuff. The fourth component of existence, sankhara. Such is will. Such is the origin of will. And such is the ending of will. This is what you do. This is what the motivation factor, the choice factor, which makes you do stuff, the will. Now, sometimes people would say, oh, Ajahn Brahm, that's certainly just an Ajahn Brahm renditioning of the word sankhara. And it's not. This, you can argue this point many, many times, that this is the main reason, or the main translation, the main meaning of sankhara, of being a will. What you can see inside of you is making you do things. And we always found that was a very powerful insight, to see the main reason for the word will. And when you see the main reason for the word will, you see it's totally conditioned. And the idea in our perceptual world, free will. Do you know what free will means? A myth. There's no such thing as free will. Your will is always conditioned. The only thing which approximates to free will is stillness, where there's no will, where it ceases and stops for long periods of time. Now this is where this sutta gets quite deep, and I added this extra depth to it, because it's a short sutta, to make it a little bit more interesting for you. The origin of will, the ending of will, and what will actually is. Do you know what will is? Why do you keep following it? What you think it will is? Is will coming from you? Or you come to this talk and you find that your will is totally taken over by Ajahn Brahm teaching, and you become another clone of Ajahn Brahm. Is that the case? Your will, that's what drives your life, isn't it? You choose to do this, you choose to do that a lot of the time. What actually is that process? Have you watched it arise in your mind, thing you call will? And how many times do we assume it's ours? How many times have you seen it's not yours at all? Okay, I'll give a simile. This is one of my favorite similes, which the favorite similes are ones, experiences you have, especially when you're growing up, which challenges you really deeply. And this particular experiment was done when I was a student at Cambridge in the Psychic Research Society. We hypnotized one of the students. With his consent, he volunteered. I volunteered too, but I wasn't a good hypnotic subject in those days. So he volunteered, and we hypnotized him. And of course you do a lot of silly things, first of all, because we wanted to keep the students entertained. So I forget exactly what stupid things it was, but if you're hypnotized, you don't feel embarrassed. But then one thing which the hypnotist did suggest, he said, later on, when we take you out of hypnosis, I will touch my right earlobe. He said, when I touch my right earlobe, you will stand up no matter what everybody else is doing, and you will sing the British national anthem in a loud voice from beginning to end without pausing at all. That wasn't sort of a request. That was a command. The fellow was under hypnosis. So the hypnotist then said, then you will follow that command when I touch my right earlobe later on. And, but you won't remember that I told you to do it. And then he took the student out of hypnosis. And because I saw it all, heard it all, I couldn't wait to see if it would work. You know, if you touch your right earlobe, you know, would this guy stand up and start singing the British national anthem? Most of the students were rebellious. There's no way in the world I would sing the British national anthem. But he decided, you know, actually it was exciting because I was waiting. The hypnotist was a very funny guy. He would actually put his hand up and then very close and then move it away. Oh, I couldn't wait to see him actually touching his right earlobe and see if it would work. And then eventually the hypnotist touched his right earlobe. And this young student stood up. This actually happened. I will never forget it. And he sang in a very loud voice, God save our grace, from beginning to end. And as he started, I couldn't help it, laughing my head off. And so did everybody else, the boys and girls, everybody. We were laughing. It was the most hilarious thing I'd ever seen. It doesn't matter how loud we were laughing, this student carried on singing the national anthem until he was finished. By that time I was glad he finished because I couldn't laugh anymore. Just, you know, the tears were just dry. About 5 or 10 minutes of laughing. And he was not embarrassed at all. If like an audience of maybe 30 or 40 students started laughing like that, and the end of all that laughter, you know, he just sat down again. And then the hypnotist couldn't help but ask him, why did you do that? Sing the British national anthem. At just an ordinary time, nothing special, nobody had walked through into the room or anything. And what was really scary was when this student gave a logical reason for singing the national anthem in a loud voice, alone, like that. And that was a scary thing. Because that student had no memory that he was told to do that. He did it and he found a reason for it afterwards. To him, we asked him afterwards, and to him, he had a reason for chanting the British national anthem. And to him, it was clear his free choice to sing, and that's what he did. I thought, my goodness, what is free will? The most unlikely thing to do, he did, and to him it appeared like free will. That's why this will, when you understand it, is scary. Even I, who thought I was very mindful, I can't resist this story as well. The story of Saint Bruno Tobacco. Because the story of Saint Bruno Tobacco was when I got a place at Cambridge University studying science, theoretical physics eventually. And I thought, well, what uniform are you supposed to wear? What clothes are you supposed to wear? What's the dress code of going to a top university like that? And what I did see is, people like Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr, quantum physicists, they all had pipes. They did. That was part of being a professor, to have a pipe in those days. They smoked tobacco. It's supposed to be good for your brain. So what did I do? I brought a pipe. And just an ordinary pipe, and to look the part of being like a scientist. And I'm being totally honest with you. Then I thought, well, what am I supposed to put in that pipe? It's supposed to be tobacco. What sort of tobacco should I put in? And I saw this advertisement over on the TV, San Bruno tobacco. In San Bruno tobacco, that's where the fellow put the tobacco in the pipe and lit it and started walking down an ordinary street. And when he walked down the ordinary street, that's when this incredibly gorgeous, attractive girl smelt the aroma of San Bruno tobacco, was totally enchanted, and left her workstation and went following him, willing to do his every command. And then another beautiful girl left her station in the post office or something, and she also went walking down the road following this guy, entranced by the aroma of San Bruno tobacco. And then after a few moments, a whole bevy of beautiful women were following this guy. I wasn't a monk at that time, okay? I was just a young, silly boy. So I bought some San Bruno tobacco. I don't mind punishing myself by saying all the stupid things I did when I was young. And I put it in a pipe, lit it, and just walking down the street. And the only thing that followed me was a dog. That's being honest. I was convinced, brainwashed by that experience. Why did I buy that? Totally stupid. But that's what we do. That's our will. I thought it was free will. I had free choice. Looked at the advertisement. Yeah, why not? Oh, your will. What are you doing with it? Is it free? Is it conditioned?
I don't think anything's free, Ajahn Brahm. I think it's all conditioned.
Ah, that's interesting. To find out what is free.
I beg your pardon?
Find out what is free with no will. You just sit here and shut up. That's free. You choose not to. You don't do anything. You become still. You become in deep meditation. That's not something you do.
But is that free will as well? Because
Oh, that really is fun.
decision to sit down and do meditation.
No, you've got nothing else. So don't do anything. No, thank you for saying that question. That really is quite important. Are you successful in your meditation? Do you get into the jhanas and deep meditation? If not, why not? Because you try and do it. When I meditate, I don't do anything. Sit down there and be still. I say just naturally. It's just because that's what happens when you don't do anything. You have stillness instead. Really natural, deep, easy. not made, not constructed, not need to be mended, nor need to be constructed again. How much in life do you always have to keep mending, doing it again, keeping it going? With the meditation, you don't do anything. Because you don't do it. You don't decide, I'm going to meditate now. I just go and just sit down and just do nothing. It's a non-doing.
Because when you meditate, when you go to meditate, you're making up that desire, that decision, and there's the will there to go and sit and meditate.
Not me. I've got nothing else to do.
But it's still part of.
Not really. There's a very powerful point there. I just still remember one of the nuns, when she was a lay person. She said that the first time she ever got a really deep meditation was when she went into the meditation hall to kill time. She wasn't trying to do anything. There's nothing to do. Really. And that's a very powerful point. You just aren't doing anything. You're just sitting there. Absolutely no will at all. Anyway, thank you. That's an interesting point. So anyway, that's the will, where it ends. And also, such are consciousnesses. I always use that in plural. Not consciousness, but consciousnesses as the fifth of the 5 parts of existence. Such is consciousness, its origin of consciousnesses, and such is the ending of consciousnesses. When I make it plural, it makes it far more accurate and more interesting. How many consciousnesses have you got? Sight, sound, smell, taste, physical touch, and mind consciousness. Each of those consciousnesses are totally different. Knowing is not the same as feeling the body. Feeling the body is not the same as seeing. They do sometimes experience the same phenomena through different angles, but they are totally different phenomena. Having investigated those 6 for years and years and years, and seeing it, it's a pretty good interpretation to put them as 6 totally different types of consciousness. And I think you've heard me say before that those 6 different types of consciousnesses, what usually happens is, say you see something, and then almost immediately afterwards you have knowing you've seen something. You get sort of sight, goes into mind consciousness, and then you go back to say seeing, and then you know again, and it gives like the knowing, every moment of knowing, for every moment of seeing followed by knowing, seeing knowing, seeing knowing, seeing knowing, it gives it a similarity to hearing. What you hear, you know you heard. Then you hear again, you know you heard. You hear again, you know you heard. Because in the knowing comes, that's the only way you can really cognize all the different senses. Seeing and hearing and physical touch are the most usual. You have a touch in your body and you know you felt something. And then a lot of times you may even just continue with the knowing and then eventually go to one of the other senses. The sense of knowing is so common, so dominant, it makes the other 5 senses have a sense of similarity. Why is hearing and seeing so similar? and touching, similar, smelling, tasting. What you take to be seeing or hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, what do they have in common? The fact that they become objects for knowing. And after a while, when you see these as totally different, then you can understand and accept when sort of the seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching stop, cease for a while. You can understand what knowing really is. And you know what that's called? The jhanas. You just know. You don't smell, you don't taste, you don't have any feelings anywhere in the body. If somebody touches you, you won't feel it. You just know. You don't even know that physical contact. Your eyes are closed, but even if you had your eyes open, you don't see. That's why one of those amazing experiences I told you about, going to a Zen monastery, where I was told to, as a student, I was told just meditate with your eyes open. And it was peaceful enough. The sight vanished. I could not see anything. My eyes were fully open. And that was really a beautiful experience. I just knew how to be still and to be able to have your eyes fully open. My eyes were very good shape, but I couldn't see. The sense of sight had turned off because I was knowing so powerfully well. Anyhow, some interesting extras to this easy sutta. And so that is why the Buddha is freed, with the ending, finding a way, freed with the ending, fading away, cessation, giving up and letting go of all identifying, all worries, all ego, possessiveness, or underlying tendency to conceit, I say. But, Master Gautama, when a mendicant's mind is freed like this, where are they reborn? What happens when you get enlightened? Where are you reborn? The reborn doesn't apply. Vacha, said the Buddha. Instead of saying they're not reborn, it doesn't apply. The very concept is just doesn't exist. Well then, are they not reborn? They're not reborn. Doesn't apply. Vacha. Well then, are they both reborn and not reborn? They're both reborn and not reborn. Doesn't apply. Vacha. Well then, are they neither reborn nor not reborn? They're neither reborn nor not reborn. Doesn't apply. Vacha. Master Gautama, when asked all these questions, you say it doesn't apply. I fail to understand this point, Master Gautama. I've fallen into confusion, and I've now lost even the degree of clarity I had from my previous discussion with Master Gautama. Pretty frustrated. No wonder you don't understand Vacha. No wonder you're confused. For this principle is deep, hard to see, hard to understand, powerful, sublime, beyond the scope of logic, subtle, comprehensible to the astute. It's hard for you to understand since you have a different view, creed, preference, practice, and tradition. Well then, Vacha, I'll ask you about this in return, and you can answer as you like. What do you think, Vacha? Suppose a fire was burning in front of you. Would you know this fire is burning in front of me? Yes, I would, Master Gautama. But, Watcher, suppose they were to ask you, this fire burning in front of you, what does it depend on to burn? How would you answer? I would answer like this. This fire burning in front of me burns in dependence on grass and logs as fuel. Suppose that fire burning in front of you were extinguished. Would you know this fire in front of me is extinguished? Yes, I would, Master Gotama. But Watcher, suppose they were to ask you, this fire in front of you, that what is extinguished, in what direction did it go? East, south, west, or north? How would you answer? It does not apply, Master Gotama. The fire depended on grass and logs as fuel. When that runs out and no more fuel is added, the fire is reckoned to have become extinguished due to lack of fuel. In the same way, Watcher, any form by which a fully enlightened one might be described has been cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, obliterated and unable to arise in the future. A fully enlightened one is freed from reckoning in terms of form. They're deep, immeasurable, and hard to fathom, like the ocean. They're reborn, they're not reborn, they're both reborn and not reborn, they're neither reborn nor not reborn. None of these apply. Any experience, perception, will, consciousnesses by which a fully enlightened one might be described has been cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, obliterated and unable to arise in the future. A fully enlightened one is freed from reckoning in terms of any of these things: form, experience, perception, will, and consciousnesses. They're deep, immeasurable, and hard to fathom, like the ocean. They're reborn, they're not reborn, they're both reborn and not reborn, they're neither reborn nor not reborn, None of these apply. When he had said this, the wanderer Vajragota said to the Buddha, Master Gotama, suppose there was a large sal tree not far from a town or village, and because it's impermanent, its branches and foliage, bark and shoots and softwood would fall off. After some time, it will be rid of branches and foliage, bark and shoots, and softwood consisting purely of heartwood. In the same way, Master Gotama's dispensation is rid of branches and foliage, bark and shoots, and softwood consisting purely of heartwood. Excellent, Master Gotama. From this day forth, may Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who's gone for refuge for life. And that's the sutta. Okay. Yeah, questions? And then see any more questions from the audience. Excellent. Note, my mistake, 26th of July is Bodhinyana entry to range ceremony. So the 26th of July sutta class will not apply. I used the word not apply, it said they put in here will be cancelled. Okay. Is it necessary to people after Nibbana in order to attain Nibbana? I don't think this applies.
Sorry, Ajahn, I should say to understand nirvana.
Or is it necessary to people to understand nibbana in order to attain nibbana? How do you develop a balance so that we're not attached to nibbana and can deal with the present life? Basically, you don't have a choice. The will is gone. So once you experience nibbana, see nibbana, that's it. You can't say no. You get the taste of nibbana, and then you think, oh, I better not do this. I've got kids and others. And someone will look after your kids. What was that Mahayana story, which I really like? You say Ajahn Brahm, Mahayana, you should just stick to Theravada. But I kind of was inspired by this story. There was the Japanese, I think, kind of Zen monk, but not just an ordinary Zen monk, Hakuin. And he lived alone, and very simple living in a cave or up in the mountains somewhere. And he hardly had a little bit of food, but not much. But the villagers respected him, so they looked after him. And then one day, one of the villagers, they became pregnant. And it was her boyfriend. The boyfriend, the scallywag, didn't want to own up. And so she said, well, I don't want to get my boyfriend in trouble. There's still a hope that we may eventually settle down together, even though she was now obviously pregnant. So when pressed by her father, just needing to answer him, said it was that monk's fault. He made love to me, and this is the result. And so the father was so upset that the monk had done this. And so together with other senior members of the village, they went up into the mountains and they saw that monk and they just scolded him. You bad monk, we trusted you. And they really gave him a heavy scolding. But they never hit him, but just argued with him and scolded him and demeaned him. And then they went back home. And when the daughter had given birth, they went to scold the monk a second time, with the baby this time. And they said, you're responsible for this baby, you look after it. So the monk had to look after this baby. Oh, I never mentioned that when they scolded him the first time, the only response which the monk had was just to say, aso. He never sort of denied it, never admitted it, just said, okay. So the monk started looking after the baby. Don't tell me how a monk will look after babies. Please don't ever do that to me. But the monk realized they were not going to listen to what he said. They'd already decided that he was responsible. So he looked after that kid reasonably well. But then the mother started thinking, oh, I wonder how my baby is. How can a monk look after a kid? And she started feeling scared about the wealth of her baby, and also about what she'd done to that monk. And what made it worse, her boyfriend, he'd actually run away to the city and never left a forwarding address or anything. So she was really upset with the behavior of her boyfriend. She thought he loved him. And so she told her father, it wasn't the monk's fault, it was my boyfriend. He just ran away to town. I thought of protecting him, but now he's gone. I'm so guilty, I feel so sorry. But I need to go and see my kid, the baby. And the father felt so guilty that he had a quick meeting with all the senior villagers, and they went up the mountain to see that monk and tell him, "We're so sorry, we thought you were guilty. Now we've found out that you weren't the father of that child. And if it's okay with you, can we have the child back?" And all the monk Hakuin said, "Also," and gave the kid back. And sometimes I kind of like that. There's no anger, no remorse, you've never done anything wrong. It's okay, you want to have the kid, now you look after it. So if anyone accuses you of something you never did, what should you say? Arsehole. And you can always find a way to deal with any problems. Is that correct? Arsehole. Okay. Okay, let's get to the next question. Dear Ajahn, regarding disillusionment, is that okay? Is it appropriate to say the wrong view towards body, feeling, mind and Dharma leads to suffering? Of course, yes. Of course it's appropriate. It does. If it leads to cessation, detachment, peace, then you know it's a correct view. That's one of the things about the right view. It doesn't cause problems. So is the views of someone like Mr. Trump, is that right view? If it leads to problems, it can't be right view. Anyway, dear Ajahn, regarding disillusionment, the three questions. Dear Ajahn, do you know that there was only knowing consciousness there in jhana? After the jhana ends, thanks, I will miss you during the rains. Okay. Do you know that there is only knowing consciousness after the rains starts? I disappear, which is wonderful. I enjoy disappearing. Am I always around? Will you see me during the rains? It's nice to disappear. That's the only place you can have some rest. That's why I got my cave. I go in there. But am I inside it? No, that doesn't apply. Do you know that there was only knowing consciousness there in jhana? If you go into a jhana, you know there's only knowing consciousness. You can't experience anything else. There's this, the body vanishes. And that's one of the most beautiful things, for the body to vanish. You can't feel anything. And then hearing disappears. Seeing, obviously, you go and sit in my cave, it's totally dark. It vanishes. Smelling. I don't know how long I meditate in that cave. You think after many hours, be a few smells there. I'm an old monk. Sometimes I can hear sounds when I'm not in deep meditation coming from my backside. I think you can hear them too, maybe even smell them. When you're in deep meditation, that all vanishes. So yeah, you do know there's nothing there. Well, what does nothing feel like? That was one of the interesting experiences which, even now, it took me many years to understand what happens when you're almost getting into a jhana. And that was when I was doing the walking meditation, years and years ago. And walking, and all of my attention was just on a few movements of my legs. And everything else was kind of disappearing, and it was very peaceful. And then that's that occasion when it was like I heard someone 1,000 miles away. Brahma Wangso, Brahma Wangso. was my name. And it appeared so far away. But it got my attention. And then I paid attention to it. It was like a psychic phenomena to hear a great distance. When I paid attention to it, I found out it wasn't a great distance at all. This other monk was shouting in my ear hole. He was about a millimetre away from touching my skin. But I'm always shouting. I was supposed to go to an appointment and I'd forgotten. And I was enjoying my meditation. He was told to go and get me. And he was shouting so loud that I could hardly hear it until I paid attention. And that's actually, you can see, even the sense of sound was vanishing. Sight was vanishing. The only thing I was really paying attention to was the feelings in my lower legs as I was lifting them, walking on the carpet of the main hall in this monastery in the middle of Bangkok. That was really cool. So you hadn't totally vanished, but you were pretty close. Any questions from the floor here? Yes. Actually not from the floor, from the seats.
Ajahn, without mentioning the name of that group, there is a certain movement to say that the Buddha did not fully extinguish, is still there, or Arahants haven't. So could this be the reason when the question is asked, did he, is it finished, or it says does not apply, and some sort of confusion created in this sutta?
No, it's not confusion created. It does not apply. It means no plus a little bit more. But it's not sort of a crack in the philosophy of Buddhism where you can somehow interpret that there is a Buddha. Not just one Buddha, but all the Buddhas and all the Arahats. That doesn't apply.
Does not exist and does not apply are two different things, isn't it, Ajahn?
Not apply is deeper. It's adding something more. It's not sort of an excuse for existence. If the non-existing was the answer, or existing was the answer, the Buddha would have said that. He said, no, it does not apply. It's deeper than that. You can't say it is. You can't say it's not. It does not apply.
Don't know, find it hard to fathom.
Okay, but
Yeah,
I think
you.
the whole sutta as a whole answers those questions. About the simile of the fire. It's like a wrong question. Where does the fire go to?
Yeah, that
Doesn't go anywhere.
That is clear.
I mean, it stays where it was.
Yeah.
No, that's not true either. So just those whole description of having to go somewhere, it just doesn't apply.
The fuel
The
finished.
philosophy is wonky. It's a much deeper answer than that. These are causes and effects. When the cause goes, where does it go? It doesn't go anywhere, it stops. It's not there anymore. And then the result doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, as the cause is finished,
Yeah,
the continuity stopped.
great.
That means it's not there.
It knows me, it's not there. But to say it's gone somewhere doesn't apply.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, Ajahn. Thank you.
Hi, I have two questions, okay. But the first one, so where it said that being reborn, not being reborn doesn't apply, is that because there's nothing there to not be reborn? Is that kind of what it's getting at? Does that make sense?
You could say that, yes.
Okay. Yeah, just trying to make sense in my head how
Okay.
no rebirth, because like say the Metta Sutra or something like that would say, they're not reborn. So
Yeah.
So in
Not
other
reborn
words, it kind
again
of says no
into this
rebirth.
world, it says in there, because they're talking about a lot of times anagamis, non-returners, at the end of that journey.
Okay. Thank you. The second question. So some scientists think there's like more than 5 bodily senses, like sense of balance or sense of temperature, maybe others. Do you think that's valid, or do you think there's only 5? It can make sense at all?
Yes, there's 5 main ones.
Yeah, okay.
Other ones you can say is...
Sort of different, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
There's like many cars these days, I've got all sorts of additions on there, and GPS and other stuff there they keep adding on. There's the main 5 ones. Yeah.
Ajahn Brahm, so you talked about free will, and I just have a question about volition.
Yeah.
So, volition is part of, I guess, the Eightfold Path. That's the second one. That's how I imagine it.
Yeah.
Like setting intention, good intention, wholesome or unwholesome. Is will a part of that, or?
Will, no, will is part of the 5 khandhas. It's right, what was it? Samma ditti number 1, Samma Sankappa. That's the Samma Sankappa, the right intentions. Number 2 is intentions of renunciation, kindness. Renunciation, loving kindness, and the other one is kindness. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. That's that second factor of the Eightfold Path.
So that's part of the will, isn't it? Although this might be conditioned.
Yes.
So although there's no free will, there is a will.
There's a will, yes, but it's not yours.
It's conditioned part of the
Conditioned,
condition.
yes.
Because there's no you.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's why you come to places like this, to get brainwashed. And I say that honestly. It's no joke. Your will gets changed. You get kinder, more gentle, easier to let go of things. But why is it that when people get sick and die, why do they grieve? You may say it's normal. Is it? It's common. But you see, make peace, be kind, be gentle. Can't we make peace with these things? So that's the first thing is renunciation, letting go, giving up. Give up. And things which are which upset you, give it kindness. Give a kindness to a person who's passed away. No need to cry. Be gentle to yourself and all others. And I don't say that as hypocrisy. I always thought that was strange. When a person passes away, we feel we have to cry for them. In some cultures, we have professional mourners we hire to cry for us. You can think of your partner who passed away. They lived such a beautiful, good life. They deserve like applause, not tears. Honestly, that's how I felt at my father's funeral. I never had any tears. I felt like standing up and giving him a round of applause. I honestly thought that. I was too scared to do that because all the others, they would have thought I was crazy guy. That's a round of applause at your own dad's funeral, who I loved very much. Well done, Dad. Thank you for the 16 years when you loved me and taught me so much. I thank you, and I'll always thank you for that. That's how, I'm being honest, that's how I felt. Okay, that's it. Okay. Okay, we've got another question on here. Okay. From Portland in Oregon. I remember going to Portland many years ago, and I loved that place because one of the reasons I loved it, they had all these stickers on the cars. Keep Oregon weird. It was a nice place. Portland, Oregon, USA. Would I be correct to say that when the brain automatic nervous system is not properly functioning and messing with our perception, it's best to turn it off, meditate as much as possible? To say when its brain autonomic nervous system is not properly functioning, then turn it off when it is properly functioning. That's much better. And it messes with our perceptions. Is it best to turn it off and meditate as much as possible? That's an interesting option. If you can meditate, and you can trust that the meditation is stopping or avoiding those misfunctions of your perceptions, then why not? If you can. And if what the perceptions change into is way more peaceful, way more still, then it'll be great. The thing is that the brain automatic nervous system is not properly functioning. Why is it not properly functioning? Will the meditation avoid that problem? If you can really turn it off, great. But sometimes you may think you're turning it off and you're not. So it depends how your meditation was before. If you can really turn off those perceptions and just be still, then fine. That's a weird question, but I did say, people in Oregon, please stay weird. Have any of you been to Oregon? In Portland especially? That's such a lovely town. Stay weird, Oregon. Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Okay, so let's pay respects to the Buddha after a sutta class, and then we can disappear. That was amazing. I thought that'd be so boring, that talk. Okay. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. There's quite a turnout in the end, the sutta class. Go on, come on.